Ole! Hi everyone, welcome to another live lesson with me, Matt Stead. It's been a little while, hasn't it? So this live lesson was originally planned for the start of April, but unfortunately COVID caught up with me. Seems that it's an annual event with me because I had it last April as well. So it took me out for a week, but I'm glad to say I'm all recovered and I'm back and I'm fine. So thanks everyone for all your patience. We're back in business and we're ready to go today. So today we're going to look at a ukulele classic, Ain't She Sweet. It's kind of like, it's almost like a rite of passage, isn't it? It's one of those songs that you almost have to learn to play on the ukulele. And I think the reason it works so well on uke, and the reason it's worth really taking the time to learn, is that if we think of the ukulele's golden age, first of all, we had the end of the 19th century in Hawaii when the ukuleles first came into existence, because they came from Portuguese instruments and they were developed in the late 1900s. But the next big wave was when it hit the mainland America, and that went hand in hand with the early trad jazz era, so you're talking 20s and 30s. So these kind of trad jazz songs, they work beautifully with ukulele, and they were played tons and tons of times on ukulele. So I think we'll have loads of fun with this one. And just a bit of boring admin stuff. Don't worry if you're getting a little bit of buffering. For some reason, it always takes a little while to settle down. So 5 minutes into it, we'll be plain sailing, so don't worry about that. If one of you could just let me know how the sound is today. I've gone back to my normal microphone, so we should be back to normal today. Every time I try a fancy microphone, it all goes horribly wrong, so I've just gone back to my good old normal mic. Hopefully that'll work. Sheets are still available. The links are in the description. I've also linked them in the comments as well to help you guys, so you can find them there. Let's see how everyone is. Amanda's terrified. That's a good start. No, I'm teasing. You'll be fine, Amanda. It's not as hard as it looks, and I'm going to show you some. I'm going to show you some cool kind of little cheats as well. So don't panic. Captain Mannering will be absolutely fine. Esther's just finishing munching. Hi, Esther. Hi, guys. There we go. Oh, no worries, Lisa. You can always head back and catch up on this anytime you want. Absolutely fine. Esther's just saying volume could go up a little bit, so I'll try turning it up. That should help. So just try with a little bit of uke. It's not going into the red, so I think we should be all right. So yeah, great, good stuff. Thanks, Esther. Cool. Hi James, hope you're keeping well. I hope you're doing well over there. I'm still waiting for spring over here. We had a kind of false spring about a week ago where we had lots of sunshine and the butterflies came out. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm obsessed with butterflies. Yeah, it's gone really cold again since then, and it's really windy today. So I went around the site looking for butterflies, but to no avail. So I don't know what's going on there. Hopefully that sounds come up a little bit, so should be a little bit better now then, guys. Okay, so let me bring the sheets up on screen and we'll crack on with learning it. The first thing we're going to do is we're just going to look at the chords that form the song. Think about the patterns, why they exist in that way, how they're there, and I'll teach you the basics of how to play it. And then what we'll do is we'll look at adding some really nice little bells and whistles to make it even nicer, which will be really good fun, I think. And then finally, if anyone's feeling really brave, we've got an up the fretboard version. Now that one you don't have to do, it's just there as a bit of an option that we'll do a bit later on. And even if you can't do them all now, it gives you something to aim towards, doesn't it? Which is really great. So, hi Betty, good to see you, good to see you. So let's have a look at what's going on in terms of the song structure. So this one's fairly straightforward. It looks more complex than it is. Let me explain. So we have two main chords in the verses. We have the one chord, and because we're in the key of C, the one chord is 1, and then we have the 5 chord, and the numbers from the chords just come from counting up on our hands or counting up through the scale. So the 5 chord in the key of C, C, D, E, F, G. It's a G, okay? So if you have a look in that first line of the song, really all we're doing is going from a C chord, the 1 chord, to a G7 chord. One chord sets you off on a journey. It's the chord that everything resolves to and feels kind of comfortable and safe. The 5 chord is almost like the tension chord. It kind of builds up tension and it wants to go back to 1. And really that's all that's happening in the first verse if we ignore the A flat 7 chord, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. So if I didn't have the A flat 7, we'd have ain't she sweet, see her walking down the streets, which still kind of works, doesn't it? So we think about that A7 chord as just kind of creating a sense of movement between the 2 chords. And it has a fancy pants name. We call it the backdoor chord. Okay, so whenever that chord comes up, we call it the backdoor chord. Just going to check something and make sure my phone is off Wi-Fi, just in case that helps the buffering a second. Sorry guys, I just wanted to check that. My phone still have Wi-Fi on it, so that's probably part of the reason it's buffering. Sorry guys, that should help. There we go. Okay, there we go. Let's just check that's back in. There we go. Just need to do something else. Sorry guys. No, there we go. Cool. So that should help with the buffering a bit in a minute as well. So yes, that A flat 7 chord we call a backdoor chord. And any backdoor chord is basically a chord that is a half a step away from a chord that either precedes it or follows it. And if we think about that G7 as the chord we're aiming towards, the backdoor chord that we can do for G7 is an A flat 7. Could also think of it as a G sharp 7. And that's literally a G7 moved forward 1 fret. So half a step away, a G7 becomes an A flat 7. And that A flat 7 really leads in and resolves to it. So if I just come in super close, let me show you how we can do that. First thing I want you to do is when you play your G7, I want you to use your last 3 fingers. So you're not allowed to use this index finger, okay? So that means your second finger is going to go here, first fret of the E string, and then a third finger, ring finger up here on this second fret of the C string, and then finally little finger down here on the second fret of the A string. Then what I want you to do is just shift that whole shape up a fret, so it'll look like this. So basically we've just taken a G7, but we're not using this finger, and we've moved it up half a fret. That allows you then to pop your index finger down here, which kind of acts like a bar. It's almost like the index finger is acting in place of this nut that we have when we do a normal G7. It's almost like it's taking its place. So again, let's do that again. We've got our G7 with our index finger free. We move it up and then we put it down here. Now, if we pull that shape back and slide off, that gives us our G7. So what we do when we try this opening phrase is we do 2 beats of C, then we form the chord that I was just showing you. Sorry, everything's back to front when I look at my screen. My finger's getting muddled, which is that one, and then we pull it back. Okay. So we have ain't she sweet. Hi Carl, hope you're keeping well, mate. So notice how that A flat 7 chord, it just leads into that G7, doesn't it? I do that a couple of times. Ain't she sweet? Don't you think that's kind of neat? And that's our opening phrase. This is our backdoor chord, and this is the one it leads into. So that's all that A flat is there for, really. It kind of just fills in a gap, which is really sweet. So, yeah. Oh, Amanda's got some buffering. I think it's settled down my end, so hopefully it should be a bit better now. I've taken that phone off, so yeah, it should be good. Oh, hi Mauro. Oh, cool. He's got one of our old, one of my cool forest ukuleles. Really good to hear. Fantastic. I like those Ukulele Reds too. They've got a really nice kind of loud volume to them, haven't they? Which is really sweet. Okay, so let's get back into those chords again. Now, I promised, didn't I, that I'd make this easier for people that aren't as confident. Now, as long as you hit this second chord relatively hard and you have the courage of your convictions, rather than doing the full A flat 7, which is the recommended one if you can, What you can get away with doing is actually using your first three fingers like a G7 moved forward and then just pulling it back. It sounds a little bit weird because you get this G note here, which can kind of make the chord sound a little bit muddy, but it does work as long as you hit it relatively hard. Now the reason that works is because the weird note, if you like, is this G, and we pass over it relatively quickly. You don't really hear it that much, especially on a high G uke. So if you struggle with this version, try doing just a C followed by a G7 moved up and then drop it back. Okay, let's try that either way a couple of times. There we go. Ah, good. Mantis, you back in business. Cool. So let's try that nice and slow. Here we go. 1, 2. Oh, 1 second, guys. I think I've got someone at my door. I'll be back in just 2 seconds. Won't be a sec. Just... Sorry, guys, I'm back. One of my students had their days mixed up. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, I'm back. Okay, right. Now we'll do it, I promise. Here we go. All right, so that's coming out. Come on close, Cam. So after 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ain't she sweet? Don't you think that's kind of neat? Let's do it one more time. 2, 3, 4. Ain't she sweet? See her walking down the street. Good. And then just so you can see how it works if I use my first 3 fingers this way. 2, 3, 4. Ain't she sweet? See her walking down the street. Yeah, good. You've got it. You've got it. So practice that round a few times. You'll get that, no problem. Now, next section, we're doing something called we're going backwards around the circle of fifths. And if you followed my other live lessons, which some of you I'm sure have, you'll know that I'm big into George Gershwin's I Got Rhythm. And he was the first person to really popularise this backwards around the circle of fifths. You'll see in my sheets down here in the bottom left hand corner, there's a miniature circle of fifths, and it might look like it's kind of falling off the page, but that's on purpose because we only need the top right portion basically. And the circle of fifths just takes a series of notes, and every time you go clockwise around that circle, the notes are going up a fifth. What does that mean? Well, we just count up from the 1. So if I go from C to G, thinking of C at 12 o'clock, look, C, D, E, F, G is 5 higher than it. So we call that a fifth, right? That's simple. If we go up to the next one, G to D, let's make that bigger. Let's bring it up on the screen. Let me just pop that. If I put it up and then pull it a bit bigger, might make me a bit, might have to shift over myself, but hopefully, there we go. We'll leave it like that. So hopefully some of you can see it on screen then. So if I go round from G next and I count up, G, A, B, C, D, D is 5 higher than G. Then if I go up from D, D, E, F, G, A is 5 higher than D. And it goes around in a circle like that. Now a brilliant thing about the circle of fifths, anytime you play one of those chords in the circle, it wants to resolve back to the chord that's a fifth below it. So when I play an E, it wants to resolve to an A. When I play an A, it wants to resolve to a D wants to go to a G, and a G wants to go to a C, and you could go around forever and ever around the circle like that. And we tend to play these chords as seventh chords because sevenths have a sense of kind of almost like an unresolved quality about them. They want to move somewhere. So what Gershwin realised was you could go backwards around the circle of fifths, one chord after another, and it creates this endless feeling of movement until you finally stop it with a major chord. That's what's happening here, basically. So if we go back to the chords, if I bring it in, there we go, and pop that down. Fantastic. Okay, so we can see that opening section. The next section, what we do is we start with a C, then we go to an E7, so we've jumped around the circle. That E7 wants to resolve to an A7, so we do it. The A7 wants to resolve to a D, and we'll do it as D7. The D7 wants to resolve to a G, and then the G7 wants to resolve to a C. Now if I played a C7 after that G, it would still kind of feel like it wants to resolve to an F. But if I turn that C into a C major like we do at the end, it kind of puts a full stop on it, like we're finished basically. So let's try playing that round. The chords are in the back of your sheets, by the way, but I'll keep it on close cam for this bit so you can follow it on the screen anyway. Just notice the measure marks. So we have 2 C's because we have half a measure of C. 1, 2, 2 E7s. 1, 2, 4 A7s because it's a whole measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 D7s, 2 G7s, and C. Oh, Angela's put, it's really helpful actually, Angela. Don't forget to like the actual video itself on YouTube because it really helps the algorithms and everything. Thanks, Angela, that's really thoughtful. Hope you've had fun out there in NAMM. I think Angela's been out at the NAMM show in California. It's so cool, I'm well jealous. One day I'll get over there. Right, let's try that one more time from the C. 2, 3, 4, C, E7, A7, stay on it. D7, G7, C. That's simple, right? So that's our I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Lovely, right? So should we put a whole verse together? Let's give it a go. And just bring that down slightly so you can see it on the screen. Okay, let's give it a go. Now in a minute, I'm going to show you a way of pepping this up and making it sound much nicer without doing anything too fancy, something really, really simple. So just for now, just strum up and down with a slight swing with me and you'll be fine. Here we go. Remember, little finger if you're doing the full version. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ain't she sweet? See her walking down the streets. Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Let's go again. Ain't she nice? Look her over once or twice. Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she nice? Yeah, good, you've got it, you've got it. Now next section's relatively straightforward. We go to the 4 chords, and when we change pieces of, when we change sections of a song, for instance, when we go to a bridge or a chorus, we quite often start with the 4 chord because the 4 chord I often call the change chord. It creates a sense of change in a song without being too drastic. And a 4 chord in the key of C, C, D, E is F, right? We just count up like that. We're going to play these as 7ths as well to keep that kind of groovy feeling going. Just got a quick question. Yeah, Amanda, absolutely. You can do the Hawaiian D7 on this one. No problem at all. So the Hawaiian D7, if anyone's wondering, is where we put 2 fingers on the 2nd fret. 2, 0, 2, 0. That will work there fine as well. So ask you very confidentially. Here it is. Ain't she sweet? So yeah, absolutely fine, Amanda. No problem at all. No problem at all. Okay, so next up we've got F7. Now you can do a 4-finger F7 by playing an F chord, adding your 3rd finger here to the C string at the 3rd fret, and little finger here to the 3rd fret of the A string. Or if you find that really tough, you can actually just do a 3-finger F7 chord. It's absolutely fine. This note on the bottom string, you're just repeating a note. And when we do our little finger here, we're repeating a C. It's the same as this one from a normal F, it's just an octave up. Or if we take our finger away, we're repeating this A. So either of that version or that version is absolutely fine for an F7. All right, I'm going to the 4-finger version just because I like the sound a little bit better. Got 2 measures to that. I'll stay on close cam. Gives you just cast an eye in her die, and the next bit just C direction to C7. Now that C7's fulfilling a really important function. Remember how I said when we play chords as 7th chords, they kind of feel unresolved, like they want to go somewhere. Well, if we were to look at the circle of fifths, this one's actually slightly gone off the sheet, but the note to the left or anti-clockwise of C in the circle of fifths is an F. So a C7 chord really wants to go to an F chord. And that's because C is 5 above F. Don't believe me? I'll show you. F, G, A, B flat, C. All right. So the reason we've got that C7 is it's a leading chord. It wants to go to that F. So it's really sweet. So we just go down there to the corner. So that gives that first line. Just cast an eye in her direction. Then we go to F7 again. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? Then we have a really quick D7, G7. It's a mini, it's like a 2-5-1, or an easier way of thinking about it, it's a mini backwards around the circle of fifths. It's like the D7, G7 we do in the verses, right? Let's give that a go then. I'll come in and close cam for that one and we'll give it a strum. So F7 to, actually come in on the word, sorry guys, come in on the word I. Just cast an eye in her direction. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? That's it. Yeah, and that just takes you back to the verse, right? Excellent, excellent. So what I'd like to do now is just play it through a couple of times. I'll sing the words. I'm going to go really slow. Eventually you can play this really high tempo. Ain't she sweet? See her walking down the street, and it sounds great. But just so everyone can play along, let's go really slow. We'll do a really relaxed version. So yeah. The C7, Amanda, just come down in the corner. Just that 0, 0, 0, 1 for the C7. Keep it really, really simple. Okay, let's give it a go then. From the top, really nice and slow. Now, I'll do the words for you. If it looks like I'm looking off into the vague distance, it's just because I'm reading the lyrics on a lyric sheet I've got here. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ain't she sweet? See her walking down the street. Yes, I ask you very confidentially. Ain't she sweet? Little finger if you can. Ain't she nice? We'll look her over once or twice. Yes, I ask you very confidentially. Ain't she nice? Just cast an eye in her direction. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? Back to the verse. Oh, I repeat, don't you think that's kinda neat? Well, I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? There you go. Yay! Well done, everyone. Let me know how you got on with that. And of course, don't panic. Those that are a bit more advanced and want a challenge, it's all to come. Don't panic. We're going to go there. Okay. Sorry about that interruption before. I'm really embarrassed by that. It's one of my students. They're brilliant, brilliant students. But we had half term at Easter, and I think she forgot that we were out of sync. So yeah. Right, okay, so let's have a look at zhuzhing it up a bit. I hate that term, zhuzhing it up. I don't know why I said that. But spicing it up, that's better. It doesn't sound so Jamie Oliver. Not that there's anything wrong with Jamie Oliver. Right, shut up, Matt. Here we go. What we're going to do is we're going to create a little bit of extra drama on the G7 first of all. And all we're going to do is something really simple. We're going to turn the G7 into a G7 sus chord. Now, a suspended chord is a chord that takes the third of a chord and swaps it for either a fourth or a second. What do I mean by that? Well, major chords, all seventh chords, have the main part of the chord we call the major triad, the first three notes in the chord, and they're the first and third and the fifth notes of a key. So a G chord has a G, a B and a D in it. So G, not A, which would be 2, B, which is 3, not C, which is 4, D, G, B, D. And a G7 also has an F in it as well, which is the seventh note flatted. But don't worry about that. The main part of the chord is those three notes. And a suspended chord takes this third note, in this case a B, and to do a suspended 2, it pushes it back to the second note, so the B will become an A. So a G7 sus 2 has an A in it instead of a B. A G7 sus 4 or a G sus 4 has a C in it rather than a B. And that's all we're doing. So we're doing a G7 sus 2. We're taking the B note of the G7, which is this note, and we're turning it into an A. The easiest way to turn this note into an A, take your finger away, right? So we can add a sus2 in this G7 chord and it sounds really, really sweet. So that will look a little bit like this. Okay, now I haven't given you the timing for this, I'll talk you through it. When we hit this G7, which is for a measure, 1, 2, 3, 4, what I do is I play the first 2 beats with my finger on, 1 beat with it off, and 1 beat with it back on. So that measure will be 1, 2, off, on. If I put that together with the bit before it, it sounds really sweet. Ain't she sweet? See how it just kind of creates a sense of drama. Sounds especially good when you play it really quick. Ain't she sweet? See her walking down the street. See how it just gives it a little sense of drama. All right, so that's the first bit we're going to do. Let's practice that really, really slowly after 4. And I'll keep it going around a few times so you can join in as many times. Remember, you don't have to do this A flat 7. You can do your cheat version here if you want. It's absolutely fine. And then just shift it back like this. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, off, on. Yeah, and again. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, off, on. Again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, off, on. Nice. One more time, guys. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, off, on. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, off, on. Yeah, nice one, guys. Let us know how you got on with that. And a perfect way for spicing up. Anytime you do a G7 chord, doesn't have to be in this song, could be any chord. It works on a G chord as well, a G major. If you ever want to spice up a G major chord, just try taking that finger on and off. Really nice way to spice up any G chord. So have a little go on that. Okay, next thing we're going to do is turn an A7 chord into an A9. And that's a weird name for a chord, isn't it? What's the 9 chord? Let me just show you as an aside. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make the screen go blank for a minute. And I'm going to show you, I need to make these small as well. Give me just a minute. There we go. Whoop, out the way. Okay. I'm going to use my whiteboard to show you what a 9th chord is. So let's go for a type of C chord because it's the easiest. It doesn't have any sharps and flats in it. Look at this for fancy pants. I've got a screen I can draw now. How cool is that? Okay, so we can think of I'm going to do a D here as well. We can think of a scale like this. 9 notes going along C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And the notes that make up any major chord are the first, the third, and the fifth of a scale. That just means 1, 3, and 5. So that would be a C major, right? A seventh chord also has this note. Notice that we're just skipping notes. All right, so we've got the 1, the 3, the 5, and we've got a B. Just to be awkward, in a seventh chord, we actually play that as a B flat. Don't worry about why, it's just an awkward thing to explain for now. I'll be here all day, right? But that's what makes up a seventh chord. Now a ninth chord, when we get to the end of a scale, we can think of counting up again 1, 2, can't we, like that, as if it's a new chord. But we could also think of this as 8 and this as 9, this one here. And that's what we do. Believe it or not, a C9 chord is C, E, G, B flat, and D. And that's all it means. We just add the ninth note of a key. Now, that gives us something really cool, which I want to show you. Let me just do one more thing quickly. Let's bring this back up. Now, that ninth note is next to the root again, isn't it? Because that 9 is next to the 8, which you can think of as 1. Oh, too many numbers, right? But just take my word for it, that ninth is next to the root. Now, this gives us a really cool trick. And this is all I want you to take away from this, even if you're not into your theory at all. This is really, really useful. Any seventh chord can be turned into a ninth chord by finding the root note from the chord and putting your fingers 2 frets to the right of it. Let's see what I mean by that. If we go for a C7, the root note of a C7 is the name that the chord's named after, so it's a C note. And here is our C note, it's this open C string, right? So to turn a C7 into a C9, all I have to do is play 2 to the right of an open C. 1, 2. And ninth chords, do you notice the difference? C7, C9. Ninth chords just have a little bit of extra kind of sophistication to them. If I want to turn an A7 into an A9 chord, the root of an A7 is an A. It really is as simple as that. It's what it's named after. Here is the A in an A7, this open A string here. Play not 1, but 2 frets to the right of it. I have an A9. I actually use my third finger for that because I find it more comfortable. Some people use 2. All right. So just a neat little trick. Anytime you want to turn a seventh into the ninth, we add our finger 2 frets to the right, basically. So let us know if you've got any questions there, because there's quite a lot of theory there, but let's think about the practical use of that. By turning a seventh chord into a ninth, we add a little bit of pizzazz. I'm using all of them now, aren't we? I'm zhuzhing things up, I'm spicing it up now, we're adding pizzazz. And it just adds like a little bit of interest. So when I go to this measure that has A7 for a whole measure, okay, what I do is I do 2 beats of A7, add my finger for A9 and take it away. And it just gives it a little bit of extra kind of pizzazz. See? And I'm just really highlighting it for big push down. C, E7, A7, on, off. And then we'll finish it. So if I put that together, I've done these chord diagrams roughly in the order they play in the song. Just remember, we're going to play that first line twice. It will sound like this now. 1, 2, 3, 4. See? Now, something that was kind of quite, not basic, but something that was already nice, sounds a lot more sophisticated. And it sounds, if you speed it up, it sounds so impressive. Right, it's just got a lovely... And it sounds like there's lots of things going on, but your strum pattern doesn't have to change at all. Just goes up and down, just literally taking fingers on and off. So that's yours to experiment with. We can add those fingers on and off the verses, and it gives it a little bit of kind of something a little bit special. Now, what I do with the down the fretboard versus, the down the fretboard bridge version, I like to just make one change, and it's the tiniest change of all. Oh, thanks guys, people like the whiteboard. I'll bring that back for next time as well. It came about because I'm always trying to think of ways to explain music theory using my fingers, and sometimes there's only so far you can take it with fingers. It's useful to show people on a board, so I finally bit the bullet and worked out how to do it. Okay, let's have a look at the bridge bit then. Now, the simple way to add a little bit of change to this, we're going to make it more sophisticated when we get the fretboard in a minute, but it's just to do the F7 two different ways. Okay. So the first F7, I play with 3 fingers like this. And then the next A7, the next measure, pop my little finger down. That's really nice because the C that follows it, I can just take everything away but my little finger. And then I go down to C7. I realised here in the chord diagram boxes, I forgot to put the extra C in this next line. I should have put the C back in, because the next one we do that again. It should go C here, and then D7, G7. Okay, alright, so just to bear in mind, after those last 2 F7, add a C. Let's give that a go with a chorus. I'll just do it instrumentally. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 2 each, D7, G7. Yeah, really nice. Well done, guys. Let's play a song. Let's give it a go. I'll bring this. I'll bring the original chords up just so you can see them. Okay, and then you can put your spicy bits in. Let's give it a go. Let's play it through. I'm going to keep it slow tempo. I know it's a little bit kind of slow and dreary at the moment, but it's really important that everyone's involved. I don't want to leave anyone behind, so I'm going to keep it nice and slow. If you want to go super Speedy Gonzales fast, you can. You can do it on your own in a minute. All right. So let's give it nice and slow from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ain't she sweet? See her walking down the streets. Yes, I ask you very confidentially. Ain't she sweet? And again. Ain't she nice? Look her over once or twice. Now I ask you very confidentially. Ain't she sweet? Just cast an eye, finger down in her direction. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? Quick D7, G7. Oh, I repeat, don't you think that's kinda neat? Yes, I ask you very confidentially. Ain't she sweet? Yeah, cool. Well done, guys. Really nice. Well done. Now, this next bit we're going to have loads of fun with. I thought we could then have a look at something really kind of fancy pants. It's called a dropped thumb triplet. So in this first bit, rather than just doing straight strums, on some of the chords, what I like to do is a little triplet. I'll do that a little bit more explicit, sorry. See, I slowed it down a bit so it went slightly out of time, but just so you could see it actually happening. I'll do it a bit quicker. See, there was that little sneaky little triplet in, and you can do it on any piece. I quite like it on the G7 towards the end as well. See, it came in there, super fast, but really, really neat thing to do. This was popularised by two players, I think, mostly. George Formby in the UK with his banjo ukulele used to do a lot of these triplets, but also Roy Smeck in the States as well, who is an incredible ukulele player. He used to play a Little Old Martin. I actually brought one to show you because I think this sounds lovely on an old Martin. You get that lovely. I was doing loads there just to give you an idea. The reason I'm not actually using the Little Martin for the whole video is just because it's so small you can't see what I'm doing with my fingers, and I think I want to make this best as I can for you guys. I want you to be able to see where my fingers are, so 10 is a bit easier to see. But yeah, that lovely triplet just really adds something. So what I want to do is I'll break this down into just how to do a triplet first, which is a really great skill to have from the ukulele. I'll show you a couple of different ways of doing it, and then I'll show you how to turn that into what we call a drop thumb triplet, and we'll put that into the piece of music. All right, so first of all, the triplet itself has three main parts to it. Let's move this out of the way so we've really got a close up. The first one is a down strum. So what I want you to do is I want you to think of triplet as like a 3-syllable word. I know it's not really, it's like triplet, right? But I want you to think of it as triplet. Triplet. 1, 2, 3. So we need to create the space of 3 movements in the space of 1 beat. We do this in the space of 1 beat in the song. So it's quite tricky, but it's totally doable if you follow my lead, okay? First thing we do is we come down with our strumming hand. Then we follow down with our thumb. Now the key thing here, which is really, really super important, is that the thumb comes behind in 1 movement. Now to do that, I find I like to actually come in towards the uke. I'm going to try my other camera. I've got a camera angle set up here. Yeah, that's better. So you can really see it. So see how my hand is almost tilting in towards the uke. And I keep this thumb up like I'm trying to hitch lift. Okay. It's 1 movement. What we don't want, guys, is this. 2 movements. Because it's gonna take us too long and it's gonna throw our momentum. So 1 movement, triple. Okay, let's come back to the other one. Triple. Okay, that's the first 2 parts of your triple. Now notice that first one. Most teachers will teach you to use your index finger, and that's totally fine as well for a triplet. Go index fingernail, pad of your thumb. I find it's more fluid and easier to actually just use all of your nails, and rather than coming down with them already out, notice I kind of open out as I go. Can you see that? And it makes it a smoother transition. Okay, cool. Now the next thing we do, Will, by the way, I've seen your question, Will. I'll come to that in a minute because it's quite interesting. So this, what we're going to do is we're going to do, next bit is just to come back up. So to finish your triplet, you literally just strum up with the pad of your index finger. Triplets. Practice that round me really slow. Triplets. Triplets. Notice 1 arm movement for the fingers and thumb, and then another one to bring you back up. Triplet. Let's keep it going round. Triplet. 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 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, really, really good. Now, what we do with a dropped thumb triplet is we normally put that into a strum and we just do it in one beat. The reason it's called the drop thumb triplet is when you put it in, the only difference you see in your strum is this thumb dropping down. Do you see that? So what we do is we put it on one of the beats, and I like to put it on the third beat. I like to do it on the second chord, the A flat 7, but you could technically do it on any of the chords. So what I do is I strum down twice, and then I do my triplet and a final down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Oh, sorry, I'm getting my counter wrong. Yeah, sorry guys, I'm doing that completely wrong. I forgot the A flat 7 is just 2 beats. Duh. What I want you to do is put it on the first beat of the A flat 7 and then follow it with a down strum. Alright, so triple it down on your second chord. Just practice that with the chord. You can do it that way, remember. Alright, so 2, 3, 4, triple it down. 2, 3, 4, triple it down. 2, 3, 4, triple it down. There we go. If we put that together with the C that goes before, 1, 2, triple it down. See it? 1, 2, triple it down. And you can do that on any single chord at all. Alright, it works on any chord at all. 1, 2, triple it down. 1, 2, triple it down. There you go. Yeah, really nice, okay? And you can put that on all sorts of parts. Like I say, I quite like doing it on the G7. So you know at the end of the next bit, we've got C, E7, A7. I like doing it here, D7, triple it down, C. Takes a bit of practice, and you really want to start slow and just build up your speed, alright? And you'll get it with time. There's a really funny spoof video someone's done on YouTube. At least I've got a feeling it might have been taken down. It's taken the mickey out of Jake Shimabukuro, which is a risky thing to do, right? Because Jake Shimabukuro is one of the best players in the world. And Jake Shimabukuro is doing a kind of a tutorial on triplets. And there's this person that's following, he's like, yeah, I've got that triple. And he does it really slow. And then he goes, all we need to then do is this. And it gets like 1,000,000 miles an hour smoke coming off the hands. So we don't have to go as fast as Jake Shimabukuro. Just take it slow and build it up slowly and put it in when you feel confident. It's just a lovely little kind of trick to add into your piece, which is really nice. I'm just going to come back to an interesting question that Will's mentioned in the comments, which was that sometimes he plays instead of playing the A flat 7, he plays a G diminished chord. And that's interesting. That does happen quite a lot in this one. By the way, Will, I'm going to be a proper pedant. You're not playing a G diminished, you're playing a C sharp diminished, because it's acting as the one chord sharpened. So a classic jazz vamp that happens in a lot of music is you play the one chord C, followed by the one chord sharpened as a diminished 7, which would be that. It's let me come in close. 0 1 0 1 like this. C sharp dim, and then D minor G7. And that's often played in this will, people will put that diminished chord in. It works because it's almost like another backdoor chord, because if you think about that G7, it's like we've moved it back. So it works as a backdoor chord. It also works because it's a classic vamp. That's a really common thing to do, is one as a diminished sharpened, and then 2 and 5. Don't sweat that too much, the rest of you guys, if you're into the theory. But yeah, a lot of people will put that in. Well, yeah, you're dead right. You can play that three frets higher as well, so you can do it there. as well, which is quite nice if you're going up the fretboard. But yeah, that's an alternative. It's almost a substitution, I suppose you could call it. But yeah, the original had the backdoor chord as the 7th chord rather than a diminished chord. But that's really, it's cool that you notice that though, Will. That's a really cool thing to do. All right. Okay. And sorry for being a pedant, Will. You know what I'm like. I'm sad like that. Honestly, I really am. Okay, let's have a look then. So that gives you these little triplets that you can play around with and put in. So we've got the extra 7ths, the sus chords and triplets to make this sound really, really beautiful. Let's go a little bit crazy and look at this up the fretboard version. Now, this isn't for the faint-hearted. This is quite tough, but I just wanted to show you because it's really good fun to have a go at, and it's really good to challenge yourself. So even if you can't get this quite yet, I think it's worth sticking with and having a go at. So now we're going to play these chords up the fretboard. So they're quite tricky, but again, I'll talk you through them one at a time. So what we're going to do is, these are basically chord inversions, or the same notes from each chord just in a different order, which is a different thing. Will, a diminished chord can technically take well, a diminished chord can technically take the name of any of the notes, but you need to use it in the right context. So because that chord is acting as the sharpened one, that's the way that jazz musicians use it. We do need to call it a C sharp diminished 7th. All right, so yeah. I'm gonna be technical. I'm gonna be so there you go. And it's ridiculous how anal I can get about uke theory. Honestly, ignore me, Will. It doesn't matter, does it? Okay, so let's have a look then. We're gonna play the C chord like a B flat shape. Now you can do this way or this way. If you know your B flat chord, let's just remind everyone. It looks like this, doesn't it? 3, 2, 1, 1. Sorry, get my finger out of the way. 3, 2, 1, 1. Or you can bar it like this, which can be really, really useful. Okay. Now, if we know that every fret on our ukulele takes a chord up half a step, if we do that shape one higher, we get a B chord instead of a B flat. And if we take it up one higher again, we get a C chord. So this chord here is a C major. It's as perfectly valid as C major as this one. It's got the same notes, just in a different order. Okay. So that's our one chord that we can do in this version, C. Now, the next chord gets a little bit tricky, but here's what's really cool about it. You've already done it. Do you remember when we were doing an F7 down here, and I showed you can either do it like a 3-finger chord like this, or a 4-finger chord? Well, if you can do that 4-finger chord, you can do this A flat 7. Now, careful your fingers don't get messed up as you go along. Don't push too hard, but shift that shape up one. That would then be an A flat 7. Okay. If I shift it up again, oh sorry, no, wouldn't it? It'd be, oh sorry, I'm having a daft moment. I was thinking of this shape. Don't worry, just ignore me. That was an F7, so next one would be a G flat 7 or an F sharp 7. Then we'd have a G7, a G sharp 7 or an A flat 7, and that's the one we want, A flat 7. So you can just take your F7, F7, F sharp 7, G7, G sharp 7, and a G sharp 7 is the same as an A flat 7. Okay, so that gives us this one here. Now, the next chord that we've got in the song was the G7. Wow, we just push it back, just like that. So let's take that really slowly. We've got C, then our F7 shape at 4, 5, and 6. And then we pull it back to the G7. Okay, that gives us 8, she, sweet. Cool, huh? Really nice. And we do that again, don't we? See her walking down the streets. Okay, now you might notice on this sheet over here, I'm going to stay on close cam. Sorry you can't see my face. I promise I'm not pulling faces at you. the chords over here, can you see we've got this extra little one, a G7 sharp 5? That's otherwise known as a G7 augmented. Wherever you see a sharp 5, it just stands for augmented. It can also be illustrated as a plus symbol. All right. Now that just means we take the fifth, I will come back to my face as well so I can explain this. That takes the fifth note of a chord. So you know we did a G chord was G, B and D. It takes the fifth note and it sharpens it. So instead of a D, we have a D sharp. So we can actually see that on the fretboard. If we know that this is a G7 chord, to sharpen the D, this is a D note here, we just take our finger up one. So this G7, if we take our finger up like this, it turns it into a G7 augmented, and then we come back. Okay, and that is your little flourish. In this version we can go up and back, just like that. So it's kind of adding a little bit of drama in. All right, let's just practice that really slowly. Don't worry if you haven't got this straight away, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, let's do it again. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, you got it. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, fantastic. Couple of questions that are come in. So Betty, Betty's got a great question. Why are we barring the entire third fret to do the C chord instead of just barring the first and second strings only? That's a really great question, Betty. Now there's a couple of reasons for that. First off, you don't have to, is the short answer. You don't have to. You can, just like you do a B flat, you can just do that shape up there. All right, so if you struggle with the barred version, oh, sorry, I just need to turn my light on again. Time's out after a while. Instead of doing the barred version, you can just do that one. And in a way, that does make it easier to change to the next chord. All right. But Will is making a really good point as well, because this is dead true. It lets you alter the chord. Now, when we play a C7 like this, which I'll show you in a second, let me come into close cam. When we play a C7 like this, a C chord, sorry, like this, we can take away this finger and it gives us a C7. Okay, this is C major, this is C7. It's only one note difference, sorry, I'm getting a bit of squeak there. That one coming on. C, C7. Now, trouble is you can't do that with this chord, because if I take off that finger now, this one, it's not got the note I need here. So that's why this bar can be a bit more useful. You can also turn it into a C minor by taking away that one. So that's a C, that's a C minor. And later on you can turn it into a C minor 7 like that. So bar chords can be a little bit more useful. So that's a reason for them. But at the same time, you don't have to turn it into a 7th. That's an option we're going to add in a bit, but you don't have to. So the answer is you don't have to do them that way, but playing them as a bar, Will's dead right. It gives you more options, which is worth having a go at. So yeah. And there was another question which was really cool from Lorna, who was asking, can you still do the twiddly ninth chords playing further up the note, further up the neck? You can do, and we're going to do it on some of the other chords, but not very easily on the A flat 7. The reason is, I'll just show you because it's interesting, all right? Again, music theory, you can close your ears if you're not into music theory for a minute, guys. This is an A flat 7. Now, the note here that is the root of the chord, an A flat 7, is an A flat. It's the one it's named after, right? And the A flat in this chord is here. Okay, it's that one there. That's the A flat. And remember to turn that into a ninth, we need to play 2 to the right of that by putting a finger down here. Now, the trouble is that becomes really awkward. We haven't got an extra finger. We could try and use our nose or our toes or something, but it's not very easy to turn into the ninth. You can do it by rearranging your fingers like this or like this. So this would be an A flat 7, this is an A9. But it's a bit more awkward. It's not quite so easy as in open position. So you could technically do it, but it's quite tricky basically, Lorna. So we're going to do this instead basically. It's a different way of embellishing it. Later on I am going to do a C7 into a C9 up the fretboard. So stick with me. Kind of park that thought, you'll get it. Okay. So just to recap, that's the bit that we can do on the start of the verse. Ain't she sweet? And again, don't you think that's kind of neat? Then we can do that C again. Now I ask you. Then we've got an E7. Now, we already know a D7 here, right? Well, if we know that moving up 1 fret takes a note up half a step, if this is a D7, this has got to be a D sharp 7, right? Which means this has got to be an E7. And it is. So if you can already play a D7 barred, you can play an E7 by doing the same thing 2 frets higher. And that's what we're doing here. Again, if you struggle with this at the moment, just soak it all up, because once you've built up the strength to be able to do it, this is a great skill to have. So for the next bit, we can do C here, E7 here. Then we've got an A7. Well, guess what? It's the same old shape again. Instead of A flat, we've taken it up 1 further to 5. And again, I can do this little finger if I want. So that makes this next bit, ask you very confidentially, all right, with the strum, ask you very confidentially. Okay, tricky as heck, but really cool if you can get the hang of it. Then, to finish it off, we've got a D7, which we bar the whole of the 5th fret, and then your 2nd finger on the 6th fret of the C string. Now that chord is an A7 moved up. Our fingers become the bar, and we've got A7, A sharp 7, B7, C7, C sharp 7, D7. All right. Okay, so that's one new one. The next one, I hope this is getting some of you excited now, because this is really cool. The G7, you know this shape, is the same one again and again, right? It's the same as the A flat 7 and the A7. It's just that old chestnut. So once you get used to this chord shape, you can use it for all these different chords. And this is where I get really excited, right? This is where these not necessarily bar chords, but movable chords that cover 4 strings, they're really empowering. They really scare people at first, but how amazing is it that you can have one chord shape and it gives you all these different chords up and down the fretboard? That's really empowering. One chord shape to conquer the world, right? That's brilliant. Okay, so that would be your G7 there. And then we'll finish with C. All right, so if I put the whole of that bit together, it will sound like this. Let's do a whole verse really kind of crazy slow. 2, 3, 4. Ain't she sweet? That line again. See her walking down the street. Next bit. Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Let's do it again for the next verse. 2, 3, 4. Ain't she nice? Look her over once or twice. Now I ask you Okay, now tough stuff there, right? Loads of tough stuff, and I realise I've missed loads of comments because I've been concentrating so hard. Just checking. I'm just going to stop for a minute to see what we've got come in. So yeah, let's have a look. Do. Oh, good, Amanda. That's the thing. That's brilliant. Even if you're not able to get your fingers there at the moment, it's really cool to just to understand it. So when you can get them there, that's amazing. And Esther, my fingers are never always well behaved, so don't worry about that. Sometimes I tell my fingers to do something and they don't. It's really, really frustrating. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. D minor 6, Will, is the same as a ninth chord. A minor 6 shares the same shape as a ninth chord. You've got it. 2 for the price of 1, right? Cool. Oh, that's amazing, Karen. That is absolutely brilliant. I love that. Karen saying, never thought bar chords would be a game changer. But, never thought she'd like bar chords, but now she does, and they're a game changer. That's amazing. Absolutely brilliant. Fantastic. Yeah, really fantastically useful for when you're doing chord melody, as Esther said there, because sometimes if you need to hit a melody note at the fretboard, and you can only get it by doing one of these movable chords. So yeah, absolutely brilliant, guys. That's absolutely fantastic. Let's just finish off then by having a look at the bridge section, where we're gonna do one extra bit of bar chords, and then we'll finish off, and I'll stick around a bit for any questions so we can see how you've got on. So again, this next bit, we're using some shapes that we've already done. So if we want to do the bridge up the fretboard, remember this old chestnut, which was D7. We turned it into an E7 by taking it 2 higher. There's no such chord in Western music as an E sharp. Well, there is, but we don't use it. It's like a theoretical key chord. It's a bit awkward to explain, but we don't use it in Western music, really. So if we move it up 1 further, rather than an E sharp 7, it becomes an F7. All right. So again, the start to this chorus is a shape that you already know and have used. It's that D7 there. All right, that gives us just cast an eye. Got to find my. It's a lot harder to sing up here because I said the melody note doesn't match the note that finishes on the A string. Just catch an eye in her. Then we go back to the C that we've been doing. Direction. Now, this is where, do you remember I said to car park that foot? Who was it? I think it might be, yeah, Lorna. So here's where the ninths come in, because we can do them on a C chord or a C7. They sound really great, because it's back to being easy. I'll show you why. What I like to do is I like to turn this C, first of all, into a C7 by just taking this ring finger away. That's the only difference between a C and a C7. It's like an A or an A7, right? It's exactly the same shape. Okay. Now remember, we can turn any 7th chord into a 9th by finding a root and playing 2 to the right of it. The root note of a C7 is a C note, and this one is the C note. So this C7 is easy to turn into a C9. We just put this finger down, 2 to the right of the root, which would be here. So anytime you play this shape, to turn it into a C, into a 9, just add that finger down. It's used a lot in music. There's one of my pieces where I did an arrangement where I do this, which is really common. It's just cycling through 7ths and 9ths, and that's what I'm using there. So what I like to do is on this bit where it goes C to C7 in the bridge, I like to turn the 7th into a 9th, something like this. Just cast an eye. Oh, how if I played as F7? Just cast an eye in her direction. See how I just add it on there? And then I go back to the F7. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? Now this next bit it is really tough, and I'm just mucking about here. If you play the C chord after the F7s, you can't really do this next bit. If you go, oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? because the next two chords you've only got 2 beats on each, a D7 and a G7. Okay. But if you ignore the C, it sounds a bit weird saying ignore the C, but if you don't play that C the second time, I keep playing an E7 rather than F7. On the next bit, sometimes I miss out the C and I'll go D7, D9, and then G7, and add that augmented. Now this is being proper fancy pants, right? You don't need to do this, but it's just fun. So that would make the second half of the chorus would be like this. Where are we? Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? Just kind of adds like a little flourish at the end. Otherwise, you can also just do F7. Oh me, oh my. You can go back to the C. Ain't that perfection? And you can go down here, or you could do a D7 here to that G9. So there's lots of options there for that chorus to kind of finish it off. Let's go really slow, and you can do whichever you find easiest here. Let's give it a go. We'll go nice and slowly. And Betty, I've seen your question. That's a great one. I'll pick that up in a minute. Okay, so let's just try a chorus. Goes up the fretboards. Here we go. I'll do it really slow again. To come in on I. Just cast an eye in her direction. 7 to 9 if you like. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? I repeat, and then you're back to the start for another verse basically. Okay, so that was quite a lot, wasn't it, to take in those up the fretboard chords, but I'll just leave that with you so you can have a little go. Shall I just quickly play through what that would roughly sound like? I won't go crazy fast tempo, but I'll just piece it together so you can kind of get an idea. Just need to bring the chords back so I can remember which ones come in which order in the bridge. Where are we? There we go, that's what I need. So that would look something like this. Oh me, oh my. Sorry, I'll do it again. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? Just cast my, got the words right, in her direction. I repeat, and then you're back to that. Sorry. Chords there if you want. So I repeat, don't you think that's kind of neat? Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Something like that. I've gone mad. I think my brain always goes a bit doolally towards the end. So lots of crazy options you can do there for the up the fretboard chord, but the important thing is you've got them all written down. So I just want you to experiment. If they're overwhelming, just pick 1 or 2 of them. And that's a really good way to learn bar chords in general. In fact, any chords really. Is if there's a tricky one, if there's lots of tricky ones, it could be quite tough to put them together as a passage. But if you just choose one and introduce it to your playing, it's a great way to learn them. I'll give you an example. Say you wanted to take a G7 up the fretboard and you wanted to get practice doing this G7 shape. Every time you go to your ukulele club or you join me for Canacapilla on Mondays or whatever you're doing, if you're playing your own song, just think anytime there's a G7 in a song, I'm going to do it there instead of there. And it will just kind of start building up your muscle memory. And then when you think you've got that and you're really comfortable, try another one. Think anytime there's a D7 in a song, rather than doing it there, I'm going to do this version. And if you take one chord at a time, it's surprisingly how easy it comes together. You just need to be patient with yourself. All right. There we go. So Betty's got a good one. Left hand pain from bar chords, any tips? There's a few things, Betty. In fact, there's loads of things. So I'll finish off actually by saying we'll stop the music for a second now, and what we'll do is let's just take any questions at the end of the workshop. So anything relating to any of this, fire away now is a perfect time, guys, and we'll deal with them. So I'll go with Betty's question to kick us off, which would be great. So bar chords, they're one of the most difficult things to get on ukulele, and I often say to people, you can learn bar chords, how to do them in a lesson, but genuinely they can take a good couple of years to build up the strength, because some of the kind of positions that we get into, they're not natural. We don't use them in our daily life. There's not much squeezing we do, particularly with this left hand if you're right-handed. If you think about opening a jar or kind of squeezing toothpaste, whatever we do, right, we tend to use with our strongest hand, which is our right hand if you're right-handed. This works in reverse if you're left-handed, obviously. Whereas this hand we don't use for much mechanical stuff. So it takes a while to build up the strength, so be patient with yourself. But there are things that can help. First off is with this hand, when you're making your bar, try and get this bar chord. I want you to use the lowest part of your finger. Okay, so the temptation when you do bar chords for a lot of people is to do something that looks like that, where just the top bit of finger is making the bar. But the strongest part of your finger is the lowest part. So if you actually make sure there's a good bit of this sticking up over the top, that will, it will get that finger straight, which is great, but it will use the strongest part of your finger. So it doesn't take half as much pressure as that does. So that's worth experimenting with. Next up, get your bar as close to the metal fret as possible. So try not to have it back here. Try and get it closer to the metal fret. That way it's less pressure to make it push down to make contact. Another thing, think about when you're barring where you need to make the pressure. So if you're doing this shape again, which is like your B flat shape, a lot of people squeeze the whole of that fret to death. They're like really pushing hard with their thumb and really squeezing it. But remember, these two fingers have got these two strings covered already. So you don't need to put too much pressure up on this top part of the chord. Concentrate all of your pushing down here into the lower part of your finger. And again, that just means you're not pushing the whole fret. You can just push on those bottom two, which will help again. A few other things, if I come to my other camera a second, with the thumb, experiment with thumb position on the back. I am going to bring this finger really high just to exaggerate. So naturally it will sit somewhere like this on the back of your uke behind the thumb. But try practicing either moving it to the left of the chord, which kind of builds like a tripod then. It kind of, it makes the pressure go all the way over the hand rather than just concentrating on the pinching motion. Or another thing to do, which is quite extreme, but I quite like to do, is actually putting your thumb to the right of this finger. So rather than it being right behind it, move it to the right. And then imagine this hand is making a twisting motion like this. It's kind of, then if you think about it, what happens then, this thumb becomes a pivot, because if your hand is pivoting that way, the finger is getting pushed against the wood. So that can help as well, having the thumb to the right rather than straight on. So a lot of things to kind of think about, but just practice a little bit at a time. One last thing, what I find really helps when you're learning it, especially if you find you're getting pain because you don't want to cause yourself a mischief, is don't push the whole time. So do almost like a nice muted strum. If you're playing, say, a C major chord, rather than holding it down and like that, try just squeezing. And in between your squeezes, release the tension. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. That gives you a nice sound. But it also means that every other half a second or so, you're relaxing those fingers, so it takes the pressure off as well. Lots of things to think about. finally, your ukulele setup. You might find that your ukulele, the strings are too high off the fretboard. They don't really want to be higher than 3 mm at the max from the top of the fret to the underside of the string. So make sure your strings aren't too high. If they are too high, we call that the action. Take it to your local ukulele shop if you haven't got a local one. You can see if a guitar technician will do it for you locally at a guitar shop, or you can do it yourself if you're feeling brave. You just need to take out the saddle and just shave a little bit off the bottom. But yeah, reducing that action will help, and particularly this end as well, where the nut is. If the strings are really high off the frets, it makes it harder to push down. So yeah, that's something worth thinking about as well. So let me just pause for a second. Let's see if what else has been saying here. There's loads of stuff. So that's quite a long explanation. So I think I've missed loads of questions. So I'm just going to go back. Betty, yeah. Hopefully that stuff will help. Yeah. That's it. And make sure to shake out those fingers in between as well. Really try and relax them. Warm up if you can as well, which will really help. So yeah. On the new F7, is there an equivalent that you can do with the previous one? So Esther's just asking on that F7 that we do, where we take it up here, whether there's an equivalent thing we can do, because before we were adding an A to a C to add a bit of interest. With that one, I guess we could, that's not the easiest way. You could add a C up here, Esther. It's kind of quiet, isn't it, because it's so high up the fretboard. I would be probably tempted to turn that into a ninth, Esther. So the melody note in an F9 is an F, and this is your F. So you put your finger 2 to the right of that. So I would. So you could do oh me oh my. That'd be really nice to turn it into a ninth. So it's not an exact replacement, but that's a really good one to do. If you're after an embellishment, looking for ninths is a great way to add embellishments up the fretboard. Let's have a look. Karen, yeah, you are right actually. Triplets are that little bit easier with nails because you don't have to make so much contact with the strings. So yeah, the one thing, if you haven't got nails and you're trying those triplets, there is a couple of things that you can do to help. The first is make sure that the finger that comes down with your strumming hand is at the right angle. It's all about these 45-degree angles. If you have your finger side on when you come down, you're going to catch it. It's got no give, and that could cause a bit of pain even if you kind of come down like that. So make sure when you strum down on a triplet to use the nail side of it, almost at 45. So not like that, kind of 45. You should find then it brushes over relatively simply. Keep it nice and light, and then down with the thumb and up there. But the same principle should still work with the unfurling. I think the main thing is just to keep it really light, Karen, not to push hard as you do it, because that can get you tangled up. Keep it super light like that, and that should help. And I quite often like to do little circles. When I do this first bit, I'll come back. That allows you to kind of get into this really rhythm. So I'm unfolding thumb up back here, unfolding thumb back here. See how I create a circle? Roy Smeck was famous for this. He used to go crazy fast like this and do these kind of really cool triplets. But yeah, you can even do that on a drop thumb. Is a cool way of doing it, but that's a nice way to practice it as well. Triplet, 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 triplet. There you go. Yeah, cool. And Betty, don't forget the importance of being patient with yourself. I know I always say it, but all of this stuff, I've been playing uke for 25 years now, and I came from guitar, so I kind of took naturally to certain things, but other things I kind of had a guitarist mind, and it took me quite a lot of time to get used to it on the uke. So I've been there, is what I'm saying. Be really, really patient with yourself, and it will come. It will come for sure. Take a couple of chords at a time, and you'll get there for sure. So cool. There we go. I tell you what, just for fun, let me just play it on me Martin to finish off. We'll do a version of H Sweet, okay? Now I'm going to do a cheat thing, because when I do a soprano, my A flat 7, I do a cheat chord where I bring my thumb over the top. Now I don't recommend you do that, but I've got into the habit. It's what George Formby used to do. So if you see my thumb coming up, don't tell me off. All right, I'm just going to do it on that middle bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play through it quite fast. But you could do the ordinary chords, or you could just sit there and just enjoy it. Really, as a bit of a wee performance. So let me see. I think I need to bring my chair up a bit so you can actually see what I'm doing as best I can. That might do it. Okay, so this is a really nice with the little trills and stuff, but I won't do the up the fretboard. 2, 3. Ain't she sweet? Say walk down the streets. Now I ask her very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Ain't she nice? Look her over once or twice. Now I ask her very confidentially, ain't she nice? Just cast an eye in her direction. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? Well, I repeat, don't you think it's kinda neat? Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? There you go, just for fun. It sounds great on a little soprano. I just love that kind of that throaty noise you get from a Martin, which is great. A bit of nonsense just to finish off everyone. So let's see. I think yeah, totally. That C9's lovely at the end of the first verse, isn't it? Yeah, just adds a little touch of class to it, which is really sweet, isn't it? Brilliant. Well, I'll just see if there's any more questions coming in. So just as a reminder, we'll be back 2 weeks' time. So 2 weeks today, we'll be back for another live lesson. I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be yet. I'm a little bit behind, but there will be one in 2 weeks' time on a Tuesday. And remember, we're back every Monday for our Can a Cappella sessions. So that's Mondays at 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock in the evening, where we do our Can a Cappella sessions. And we're going punk for the next one, so we're going a little bit crazy for the next Can a Cappella. We've got some great songs coming up in that one, really, really cool ones. Bit of the Clash, bit of the Undertones, things like that. And as I say, live lessons every other Wednesday. Don't forget the Facebook group. So if you're not already a member, if you're on Facebook, look up Uke Students Hangout, Matt Stead. So my name and then Uke Student Hangout, and it's a really lovely group where we have monthly challenges, and everyone presents videos of their playing as works in progress or completed things. It's a really supportive environment where everyone encourages each other to play. So you don't have to be like an amazing player, you can be brilliant, you can be just starting out, whatever. Everyone's welcome, and everyone's videos get the same support, whether they're like fantabulous or absolute starter, because that's what it's all about: building a sense of community, encouraging other people to play, and just spreading that happiness. And that's really, really important to me. Doesn't matter if you're a beginner or you've been playing years, that is as important as anything, I think. So that's Uke Student Hangout. What else do I need to tell you about? Oh, Any of these live lessons, if you follow my website, mattsteadukulele.com, you can watch any of these live lessons back. So you can watch this as many times as you want and practice along with the video. If you go to this website and click on live lessons, you'll find all of my older ukulele lessons as well, all of my live lessons that I've done over the last year or so. You'll also find full sequential courses there, so ukulele beginners, intermediate, next steps. There's ukulele theory, which some of you might find interesting if you enjoyed that theory side of stuff today. All sorts of goodness there. And yeah, if anyone's you've already paid for your sheet, so don't feel you have to, but if anyone wants to send any tips over, my tips jar's here, paypal.me/ukroom, or if you follow links in the description, there's a description of how you can get me a virtual high five or a virtual cup of coffee. I've had to change the website about a bit on the thank yous, you'll notice if you go to my teaching website, because Wix, my web provider, had no idea when I signed up that apparently donations are prohibited, so I've had to call it something else and do some super links, but it will still work the same way. If you go to the website, it'll just take you somewhere different to process the payment. It'll take you back to the Ukraine. Thanks everyone for all your support, by the way, over the last few weeks and months. It's been really, really crucial in keeping me going, and really, really thankful. So yeah. Oh, and don't forget, hit the thumbs up button, and if you could comment on the actual video, so not the live feed that you're in at the moment, but afterwards, if you're able to, just say I enjoyed that or I hated that. Whatever it is, it's all interactions. It just really helps the YouTube algorithm, and if you could like the video as well, that'd be a massive help as well. So brilliant. I think that's everything. I always forget my spiel at the end, which I meant to do. It's all important stuff and I forget to tell you everything. So yeah, just gonna have one last check to see I haven't missed anything. So I think I've got most of those. So yeah. Oh, Esther just wanted me to go over. I can do it, Esther. I got time. Esther was just asking if I could go over that last bit of the bridge one more time, which is absolutely fine. So the important thing for the bridge, if we're doing it the last time, is that we don't play the C if you're doing this version. So I'll go back to this sheet again. It'll only take a sec. It's all cool. Here we go. So when you do the bridge the second time, just cast what you've got to do is leave out the C, hit the D7, and add the 9 on and off, and then a G7 and the augmented fifth. The important thing there, Esther, is you've got to leave that C out. So it'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, D7 and 9, G7 and extra. All right, so that C gets missed out basically. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? All right, so it's a bit of a funny one. It's the only way you can fit them in basically, but have fun with it, have a little muck about, and now you know how to do all the notes and everything. You can make it your own, guys, and just have loads of fun with it basically. Cool. Right, well, I'm going to love you and leave you. I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining me today. That was fun, wasn't it? I really enjoyed that, actually. I love a bit of HE Sweet. As I say, be back in 2 weeks, or I'll see you on the Monday, which I'm excited about for the next Canna-Capilla. Regular Canna-Capillarists, just to warn you, May's got a load of bank holidays, so we will be here next week, but then we're going to have a little bit of a break. Live lessons will continue as normal because that's a Wednesday, but I'm going to blame the king. It's all because of the coronation and that. So I'll let you know on Monday all the dates and everything, but we've definitely got the next Monday for Canna-Capilla, and then we've got a break for 2 weeks just for the Monday Canna-Capillas. All right, I'll explain more on Monday anyway. Take care, everyone, and I will see you soon. Sending all my love. You can.